Cows alone account for about 6% of global emissions.
Oh, good old Bill Gates. We need to change cows. Let me educate Bill Gates here. Using a statistic of 6% of global carbon dioxide emissions is very misleading. If you look at the United States alone, the methane from cows accounts for around 2% of anthropogenic CO2 equivalents per year.
In reality, grazing cattle is the single largest land use globally, using almost half of Earth's land. This is the dominant reason only 2% of all land mammals by weight are wild. Cattle dominate US land too, with huge climate consequences. A recent study showed that rewilding even just half of US cattle land since 1989 could have drawn down 3 to 6 years of total US emissions, on top of the avoided methane from not producing the beef. If we were to even just consider cattle's direct greenhouse gases, which a lot of these studies do, global emissions from cattle rank third behind China and the United States among the world's largest greenhouse gas emitters. Even looking at protein for protein, beef has 93% higher emissions than plant-based meat.
The methane, which becomes carbon dioxide that cows create, is not newly created carbon dioxide. It is not in any way, shape, or form a significant contributor to global anthropogenic climate change.
Again, wrong. Methane has caused upwards of 45% of warming to date, about 0.5 of the 1.1 degrees Celsius of official warming. And the biggest source of human-caused methane is from cattle.
The planet hasn't burned up in the last 100,000 years when there were 50 plus million bison, elk, antelope, deer, and pronghorn in the United States, producing 86% of the methane emissions that are produced today.
Again, wrong. Even at the peak of the last ice age, when vast grasslands supported huge herds of wild ruminants like bison, deer, and antelope, they emitted around 15 teragrams of CH4 per year. Today, over 4 billion farmed ruminants pump out more than 100 teragrams of methane annually, far surpassing the methane of wild ruminants at any point in history. And as per the IPCC, increasing livestock numbers is directly linked with increasing CH4 emissions, and continued global livestock population growth between 1990 and 2019 corresponds with these methane increase trends.
Follow the money. The real problem is that Bill Gates is invested in vegan plant-based meat alternatives, which we know are garbage.
To be clear, Bill Gates loves meat. He sells feed to the meat industry, donates millions to meat research, and funds sketchy missionary charities that attempt to lock in people in Africa with brutal chicken farming contracts.
Grass-fed, grass-finished, regeneratively raised meat is carbon neutral or carbon negative.
Of course, no evidence is provided. Grass-fed beef is the single highest emitting and land-hungry food produced, and a new study showed that even conventional beef, which uses less land, degenerates biodiversity at 340 times higher rates than grains, and 100 times higher than legumes by mass. And so-called regenerative meat would use 2.5 times more land than conventional grazing systems that already use over half of Earth's land. So what are we doing? Don't believe this nonsense.
Thanks, Nick. So how do plant-based meat alternatives compare to animal meat when it comes to health? We have several recent review papers on this topic, and in general, plant-based meat alternatives tend to have more favorable effects on health biomarkers such as cholesterol than animal-based meats. This includes well-controlled randomized trials like the swap meat trial, which compared plant-based meats to the highest quality organic grass-fed beef. And this makes sense when you think about it, because in general, plant-based meats tend to have more fiber and less saturated fat. But I keep saying that we can't just use how processed a food is to determine how healthy it is. Instead of assuming that something is healthy because it's natural, I think it's really cool that food science has made these advancements to mimic the taste of meat while reducing all the negative effects associated with it. For the record, since I always get this comment, no one's saying that you have to eat plant-based meat alternatives to reduce your meat consumption. Plenty of healthy, whole food, plant-based options, but let's stop creating unnecessary fear around foods that can help address some pretty large systemic issues.